In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Welcome back, everybody. In today's episode, we're talking the psychology of business. And we've got a couple great guests on here. Specifically, we're talking about the DISC system and the DISC profiles that some of you may or may not have heard, but we've got a couple great experts on. Andy, you interviewed John Hayes. You want to tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, John Hayes, great guy, long time in the franchising industry, but John has specialized, and he'll talk about it, how he's used the DISC profile to motivate sales teams and work with companies, and mostly franchisors, but he works with independent companies as well. I'm going to have him work with us here at Transworld to understand some of the makeups of the people that make good salespeople and the people who make good administrators. And it's a very interesting conversation. And it's something that, business owners should pay attention to. And even when you're talking to customers.
Yeah, so actually, Mary Grothe is who I interviewed. She's the CEO of Sales BQ, and we've used her to do profiling in our business using the DISC system. I like DISC because it's super simple. It's also very prolific. You see it across a lot of different organizations and industries. So a lot of people can easily identify if they're a D or an I, S or a C. But we've also used it in conversations with our clients. So Mary talks a little bit about, if you're a buyer or a seller of a business, how can you use the DISC profile to identify who's sitting across the table from you? And in negotiations, it's really important to understand that. If you're a high D or a dominant personality, and you're talking to a C, which is an analytical personality, which is also not uncommon in the deals that we do when you're buying and selling a business. So she gave us a couple quick tips. I won't spoil it, but like one key question you can ask when you're sitting across the table from someone to identify what profile type they are.
Yeah, exactly. And it really, D's are looking for something in a deal. I's are looking for something in a deal. S's, C's. So it's really important to know who you're talking to. It can make or break a deal. So I really love this episode too. I think everyone should listen to it. And I think it's some really good information. We do have John Hayes' information in our notes. And he's a great person to pick up the phone and call at the Titus Center for Franchising at Palm Beach Atlantic University. He is looking to do more work in that space. So if anybody wants to call him, he's open.
Yeah. Lots of great free resources in this episode too that we'll have in the show notes, but we'll jump in. And again, of course, we also have a great listing of the week and deal of the week. So let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And I have a very special guest, a friend, and certainly an expert in not only profiling people for using the DISC profile, but also in franchising. And welcome to the show, Dr. John Hayes from Palm Beach Atlantic University, and specifically the Titus Center for Franchising. John, I've gotten to speak at your classes, and I've gotten to know you over the last few years, and you're certainly a true professional in the world, but, welcome to the show. And why don't you give us a little bit of background of what we're going to be talking about?
Sure. I'm happy to be speaking to your audience today, Andy. It's a pleasure. And my students always enjoy when you come to the classroom. They commented about that the other day, that they learned a lot from you, and they like learning about Transworld Business Advisors.
Good.
And, of course, franchising. This is our third year of developing the Titus Center for Franchising. We're unique. We don't know of another center that does what we do any place in the world. We teach franchising to undergraduate students. At the same time, we provide professional education to franchise professionals and people who want to get into franchising, as well as I provide a variety of services to businesses in general, those that are not franchised, particularly if they're having trouble with hiring or trouble managing people and they want to understand that process better, and they can do that using a DISC profile.
Yeah, and there couldn't be a better time for this, right? The labor market is so tight. We had a guest on an episode or so ago talking about how tight the labor market is and how hard it is to hire people. So you really need to be careful out there, right?
Yeah, because you can easily lose people today when, folks can walk down the road and get a new job because of the current economic environment that we're enjoying. That's a problem for employers because you can find somebody almost always, but finding the right person is much more difficult.
Right. So let's dive into it a little bit. Tell us how, what the DISC profile is if people don't know what it is and how to use it.
About 35 years ago, I was introduced to the DISC profile. And at the time, I thought it was sort of gimmicky. And yet, when I took the profile, I knew that what it said my profile represented, I knew that was familiar to me, that the person the profile described was the person I would describe myself as. And DISC was created in the 1950s by the same guy who created the lie detector test. So it's been around a long time. And it's been free all of these years. There are a lot of personality profiles. Myers-Briggs, for example, is very sophisticated. And there are many others that people can use. And generally, there's a fee to use them. And it takes quite a bit of explanation for people to understand them. DISC has remained a free opportunity for people. The coaching that comes with it is usually what people end up paying for. But DISC will help you, first of all, for yourself, understand your personality. Are you on the DISC scale? Are you a dominant or driver personality? That's the D. And the I is the influencer. And the S is the steady, loyal personality. And the C is the competent or conscientious personality. And we all have some of DISC in our personality, but most of the time we have one or two of those segments that are greater than the other two or three, depending on how high one of your segments is. Generally, they describe themselves as saying, I'm a high D, high I personality on the DISC profile. And if you're familiar with DISC, you know what that means.
Right.
So understanding what the person is who you're going to hire, and does their personality match the requirements of the job? And rarely do employers think about that. Somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'm good. I can do receptionist work, or I'm a good salesperson, or I'm good in accounting or HR." Well, maybe, but quite often those are jobs that people get tripped up in, and employers get tripped up because they have the wrong personality in the job. If you don't have D in your personality, you're not going to sell much of anything,
right?
Unfortunately, and this becomes a problem. And then employers think there's something wrong with the employee, but there's nothing wrong with the employee. The employee's in the wrong job.
Right.
We're getting people into the right seats in the organization. That's the trick.
Sure. The right seat on the bus, which is another book, great book. But,
Yes.
So you've talked to me about this. I've taken the DISC and I do have a high D, and I forget what else I had. Also some I in there as well. But,
yeah, you're clearly a high D, high I personality.
Right. So, let's talk about, like you said, if someone is not a high D, you shouldn't even hire them as a salesperson, right? This could save you tons of time and money.
Exactly. And people make that mistake all the time. The employee doesn't know about their profile, and the employer doesn't know. And so, somebody wants a job, and this sounds exciting. I get to travel. I get an expense account. I get this. I get that. But they don't get anything done. They have a very high I personality, and they talk to a lot of people, but they never close any deals.
Right.
Or they know all the details. They have all this very high C personality, so they know the details of the product, They can talk about it better than anyone, but they never get any sales because they lack the D.
So what's the best way to approach this? That they have it online. You said it's free for the most part.
Yeah.
And so people should give this disc profile to people they're considering hiring, right?
Yeah. Well, that anyone would hire an employee without giving them, whether it's the disc profile or some profile. But disc is so easy to use, and because it's free. The thought that you would hire somebody without using a profile, it makes my skin crawl, because I know the outcome is generally not good. And I don't, it depends on whether you read Gallup, their poll, or you read some of the other university polls. Somewhere between half employees in America and 75% of employees in America don't like their jobs. They're dissatisfied. And Gallup has one on people are disengaged. 3/4 of your employees are disengaged. So if that's true, then your business is underperforming,
Right.
because your people just aren't interested. And they're not interested probably because they're in the wrong job.
Right.
Not necessarily the wrong business, but the wrong job.
So you have the ability to help companies, understand what their roles are and who they should be hiring in those roles, right? Correct?
Right. Yes. And it's not only that. It's when you and I know each other's personality, a number of things happen. First of all, I know how to talk to you. And if you know my personality, you know how to talk to me in a way that's going to be productive. And it could be, if you're a D, you don't need many words. If you're an S, you need a lot of words.
Mm.
Well, if I'm a D, and I think everybody is a D, I only give you a few words. But if you're an S, you need a whole lot more. But you're so timid, you won't ask me for more, because my D personality is so strong that it intimidates you.
Right.
And so you won't ask me for more instruction, and you will try to do the job. You won't do it very well, but you will go home frustrated.
Mm.
And you'll look for another job. And you'll think that, either I'm mean, or you'll think you're dumb, that because you can't understand what I'm talking about. All kinds of emotions enter into it that are unnecessary.
Mm.
So we would be able to know how to communicate more effectively. We would be able to get our jobs done more effectively because we know how to talk to each other.
Yeah, that's great. And so, like you're saying, it's not too late to test your employees to help them be better in their jobs, or maybe even move them to another job, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Everybody should be using a profile, particularly if you are managing people and you feel there's a lot of chaos, or there's dissatisfaction, or you can't quite understand, you can't get a grip on the situation. You know something's off, but you don't know exactly what it is. Well, step back and give everybody the DISC profile, and then understand what it means. And when that happens, and because I do this kind of coaching with businesses, they sit back and say, so there isn't anything wrong with you after all. You're just a C personality, and you don't like people all that well. So when you tell us you don't want to go to lunch with us, it's not because you don't like us. It's because you bring your own lunch, you sit in your cubicle, and you prefer to work with facts and figures and get your work done.
Right.
And here all this time, we thought maybe you didn't like us, or that you didn't fit in.
Mm. So talk about that service a little bit. So you have that available at, currently?
Yes. Through the Titus Center, people contact me. My life is in franchising, but
Sure.
because franchising is just an extension of business, I'm still dealing with business people. And even if they're not interested in franchising, but they're interested in the DISC profile, then I help them by providing the DISC to their employees, or they can use it when they're going to hire people. And then I can come in and sit with the employees and explain to them, if you're a D, this is what your personality is like. And if you're an I, an S, a C, and so forth, we describe the personalities, and then we talk about how they interact with one another. Ds are not known as the most friendly people. They're not the friendliest people. Ds are often seen as arrogant. They're drivers. They want to get things done. They don't have time to go have coffee over at Starbucks like
Right.
the I's do. And if you don't have coffee at the coffee shop or wherever in the office with an I, they think you don't like them, that you're not interested in
Right.
them. So the D personality generally isn't interested in people. The D personality is interested in business transactions. I need to get 5 sales this month. Therefore, I'm going to work through my system.
Right.
D's are very goal oriented, and the I can be goal oriented, but the I is people first. I wants people to like them. And if you have that DI combination, which in your case personally you have, and other people have that as well, that's very effective for salespeople and for managers. But if you're all I and no D, you want everybody to like you, but you have a lot of employees many times, or you have some employees who are not getting the job done, but you don't have the heart to tell them because they'll dislike you in that case. So, you kind of do their work or you put up with it.
Right.
And so I go through and explain the different profiles and then how they interact.
No, that's amazing. So let's talk specifically about franchising. I mean, you put a lot of money into building a franchise or getting it ready to be a franchise, which you help with as well. You could talk about that in a second.
Yes.
And somebody puts together a franchise. How important is it to get the right people into your franchise?
Right. The easiest part of the job they don't do well. When franchisors start selling franchises and they don't have experience, they're just hungry to get a franchisee. And so frequently they sell the first half dozen or more franchises to the wrong people.
Right.
And the franchise doesn't get off to a great start. And then if they get bad press or they get bad reviews, really there was nothing wrong with the product, nothing wrong with the business. They just had the wrong people as franchisees. So it's very important that to understand the profile of the business or the job that a franchisee has to do. So I was the CEO of Home Investors of America, the We Buy Ugly Houses people.
Right.
And one of the things that I discovered when we had 235 franchisees at the time, that the top 10 all had D in their personality, and the bottom 10 had no D in their personality. The bottom 10 were the energy suckers. They called every day or every week saying, this business doesn't work. I made a mistake. You fooled me. Or your training doesn't work. This doesn't work. That doesn't work. Meanwhile, you never heard from the top 10 because they were buying more than 100 houses a year. The people in the bottom 10, the bottom 50, maybe they would buy 3 or 4 houses a year. They didn't make themselves any money,
right,
and they didn't make us any money. But, we took their $50,000 franchise fee. We accepted them as a franchisee. So couldn't blame it on them, even though lots of times our training team would say, can't figure out what's wrong with this guy. We've told him this same thing over and over and over, same thing we tell everybody else. He just doesn't get it. Well, true. He doesn't get it. He never will get it. Part of it is the way the information is relayed to him, because different personalities hear differently, see differently, think differently. And if you're not delivering the training to an S or a C personality the way they need it to be delivered, they're never going to get it.
right.
And you can call them every day and tell them the same thing. They're never going to get it. They don't have D in their personality. They can't pull the trigger to buy something or sell something. That's difficult.
Yeah. So you've done a great job kind of outlining this, and it's a little more complicated than that. And I am excited. I am going to try to work with you to get this profile to all my people and our franchisees, so we could start understanding, like you said, who are what's the best profile for a business broker and people who are selling franchises.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And John, if someone
It would help them.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It will help them understand, if I'm a business broker and I'm talking to 10 people a day who want to sell their business, if I know the profile of that business owner, it makes it easier for me to know how to help them, because there are D's and I's and S's and C's.
Right.
And they're all going to approach the sale of their business differently.
Well,
so, yeah, it would help.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having you in and talking to our crew and taking the profile. And if some other company or franchise system wants to do that, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. They can go to online, Titus Center for Franchising.com, and they'll find information about me. And they can email me, John_Hayes at PBA, that's for Palm Beach Atlantic, but it's just the initials PBA.edu.
Great. John, thank you so much for coming on today. We'll drop all that into the show notes, and I really appreciate that. This is great information.
Okay, Andy. Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week.
Sold.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And it is Deal of the Week. And we are going overseas right now to talk about the Deal of the Week. And we have Eric Siecker of Transworld Business Advisors of Peterborough. And Eric, welcome.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be on the show.
So you had a nice deal. It was in the sign business. Why don't you give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, we had a great deal, actually. The sellers came to us actually via our sister company Signarama, because they were looking to buy a Signarama in Australia. The Signarama colleagues referred them to us here in the UK to help these sellers move on their business here in the UK. It's a signage business, so they do signs, the usual vinyl signs, wall murals, sort of sign posting. They do vehicle wrapping. But what's really interesting about the business, they're also specialists in architectural film, which is a growing business where you can change the nature of certain elements of buildings. So you could change, for example, the appearance of a concrete post into a tree, or refresh tired shop furniture. So they got some large shops and department stores where they're wrapping existing display cabinets and benches and other furniture to refresh the furniture or to just change its appearance altogether.
So
go
ahead. It was a successful business.
Yeah, and especially the architectural film business, the side it was growing quite rapidly, and that's what sparked the interest of the buyer. They had some good recurring revenue with some, in the UK, some household clients like the NHS, the National Health Service, and some large department stores. So, the recurring revenue, of course, is very attractive, and just general growth in the business. And, this was sort of a textbook good deal with regards to the sellers were really good to work with. They had good books and good records. There were no hidden skeletons. Of course, there's always snags and some problems you need to overcome. But between the seller and the buyer, we had great discussions. We managed to overcome all of these issues. And again, the buyer was a professional buyer, already had existing businesses. Was a tough buyer, and that very sharp, knew what he was doing, asking all the right questions, but he was very fair and he was willing to do a deal. So those were textbook, good deals for good people.
Great. We love those, obviously. And so tell us how much it sold for and what the multiple was.
Yeah, so the revenue was around 580,000 with an SDE of about 130. It sold for 300, round number. So that gives a multiple of 2.3, which I think was largely driven by this growing architectural film business that we managed to get a good multiple.
Great.
So when we agreed that we would do half down and half deferred over 30 months. We had to look at this deal closely because the owners may be moving to Australia. Well, they will move to Australia, so we had to deal with tax issues and looking how we could get money from the UK to Australia over a period of time so they could comply with the visa regulations. So it was interesting to look at the international angle, and I think we've solved all their issues.
Wow, that sounds like a great deal. For a good deal for good people, as we say. So great job, Eric, getting that closed. Eric, what's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody else in the UK wants to sell a business?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can email me on ESIECKER, it's eSeeker, at tworlduk.com, or they can reach me by mobile, country code 4 7464092273.
All right. Great job. Thanks again, Eric. Thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Welcome back, everybody. And today, as you know, we're talking about disc profiles and kind of the psychology in business. And I'm super excited to have one of my friends and colleagues on the show, Mary Grothe. Mary is the CEO of Sales BQ. She got started because she was a number one sales rep in a mid-market firm for years at getting the number one and 2 top 25 and 2 top 10 finishes and millions sold. So when she decided to go out on her own, obviously sales coaching and sales consulting was a natural fit. And she founded Sales BQ, which has been a great partner for Transworld, actually, in our office. But Mary, welcome to the show. And why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about Sales BQ and kind of your differentiator?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me. BQ, people get confused. They're like, is that pulled pork and brisket? I'm like, no, it's not barbecue, people. BQ is the behavioral quotient. Just like you said, I had 8 years, nearly a decade, doing BB mid-market sales. And after millions sold, a couple of number one finishes, top 10, top 25, I was asked multiple times, what separates you? What do you do different from the other reps? Why are your numbers so high? I mean, 1 year I sold more than number 2 and 3 combined, and they're trying to figure it out. And it was hard for me to dissect it. But what I landed on was BQ. BQ is the behavioral quotient. When you think about a top performing salesperson, typically you see them doing whatever it takes ethically to succeed. The work ethic is undeniable. Their preparedness, oh my gosh, prioritization, they're always on. They do whatever it takes. There's no excuses. They plan their days. They have backup plans. And so when we look at a rep BQ, that's what we do at Sales BQ. I've got a team of fractional VPs of sales. We go on contract for CEOs across the country, and we help them rebuild their sales departments. And we focus on infrastructure and developing the talent, recruiting if they need to go up and headcount or replace anyone, and then rolling up our sleeves and getting in the field with their reps, so that we can see how the reps are actually executing. This is not sales training. This is not that butts and seats. This is, sure, let's learn a concept, but let's see how you execute. And that's all about the BQ.
That's awesome. Yes. And like I've said, Mary and Sales BQ has helped our team grow. And we've been very, very grateful for their help. But today, what I want to talk to Mary about, and what I love talking to Mary about, is that this psychology behind selling. And we just heard from John Hayes, and he kind of explained what the disc profile is. But now I want to put it into action for listeners. So, you know, most of you are listening because you're thinking about buying or selling a business, and you're probably saying to yourself, well, why do I need to worry about my sales team just yet? But you can apply these same skills in the buying and selling process if you're a buyer or a seller. So Mary, why don't you just give us an idea of like disc profiles and like what can they be used for, or what have you seen them used for? Is it usually just for sales screening, or is it for other things too?
A lot of teams will use this for screening salespeople and choosing talent for their team. I've seen it used organizationally, like across the organization. It's not just for sales teams. I've seen people master it and they know how to manage their relationships. I've actually used it with my husband and it has helped our marriage. I have a 3-year-old son and I'm spying on him, trying to figure it out and analyzing him and observing, trying to figure out what quality is. I think it's a little too early, but you can use it in so many different ways. When you look at the DISC scale, D-I-S-C, D, dominant driver, I, influencer, S is your very steady person. They're very amiable and they go along to get along. Your C is your cautious thinker. They're your analytical. They oftentimes slow things down and they're very cautious. They want to analyze every detail. But thinking about in your world, Jessica, when you have buyers and sellers, it's pretty unique when you think about the different personality styles that you encounter, especially in the buy and sell transaction. There's a lot of, or could be a lot of emotion involved in that, right?
Right.
And so when we go down and look at, when we look at these people's core chemical makeup and their personality at their core, the great salespeople, the great reps, the great people that are in that transaction that really have the power over the transaction is being able to identify who they're dealing with and look at those very easy to find factors and say, okay, I think I'm dealing with a D. So then what do I need to do to adhere and adjust to that to have a great outcome? Or maybe it's an I, S, or C.
Right. And I think honestly, it could be an advantage if say you're a buyer competing for a deal with other buyers, right? We say a lot that the deal is actually won in the relationship between the buyer and the seller. It's not like buying a house. You're buying someone's business, something they might have built over 20 or 30 years. It's essentially their baby, right? So they want to put it into good hands. So if you're a buyer, it's a way that you can get a leg up. And same thing on the seller side. If you want to really connect with the buyers that are looking for your business, you can use this tool in order to figure out who's sitting across from you at the table. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like, oh, hey, Mr. Seller, I need you to take this disc profile now, right, Mary? There's certain signs that you can learn to look for and identifying with whether they're a high D, I, S, or C, right?
Yes, and we certainly don't want to make the conversation awkward and ask them to take a profile before a meeting. But there are things that you can look for. So this is one of my favorite things to do is when you're in the first part of the conversation, asking really basic questions. How's your day going so far? Well, a D is probably going to say good. And then they're probably going to transition at that point and potentially take control over the conversation quickly, start setting an agenda, ask a question. They aren't going to waste any time. If you say, hey, how's your day going so far? And it's an I, 5 minutes later, they're probably still telling you about their day because I's are influencers and they're talkative and enthusiastic and they're storytellers. So they're probably still talking. If you ask an S, how's your day going so far? And they're very amiable. They're team players. They go along to get along. They don't rock the boat. They'll probably be very amiable and kind and nice, but they care more about other people than they care about themselves. So this is a person who's going to be very quick to say, today's been good, thank you. And how's your day been? This is going to be the person that'll turn it back and ask how your day's been. The I isn't going to turn it back to you and ask how your day has been because the I's only care about themselves. They're so caught up in talking and hearing themselves talk, they often forget to ask in return, serve, how are you? The C might give you more than you bargained for because this C is going to give you every detail. Now, they're not overly talkative, so it'll be as concise, but they're going to give you details about how their day has been. Well, I got in to the office around 8. It's been a little stressful since I came in. This is my 4th meeting of the day today. You know, they're going to give you a little bit more detail on that and a bit of a backstory, but it'll be very concise and factual. It's not going to have emotions in it. So just from that question alone, you can start to identify who you might be talking to. But then as you ask the next question and the next question and you get them talking, you can also start listening for word choice, tonality. Some things I like to listen for is if I hear someone using a lot of adjectives and really going that storyteller route, they're probably an I, they're an influencer. If you have somebody that is really driving the conversation or trying to get straight to the point, really feeling high urgency, maybe almost standoffish, well, you're dealing with a D. Don't waste their time. Let's progress.
Right.
The S is going to be super friendly. You're going to hear a lot of, well, what about you, Jessica? Well, what do you think? And then that C, it's going to be detail, facts, statistics, number. They're going to talk everything that has to do with concrete static information. So what do you do with that? The great conversationalist and that buyer, that seller, if you're looking for a really powerful outcome, they say that people like, people do business with people or they buy from people they know, like, and trust. And what I would say on that is people know, like, and trust people who sound and look and show up and talk like them.
Right. Yeah.
You find people who get along, they speak the same language. If you put 2 IT guys in a room who are C's, they're analyticals, they'll nerd out. You put 2 I's in the room, they'll sit there and chat for hours and one-up each other in their stories. They love it. You put 2 D's in a room, it's probably a really short conversation. And then the S's will talk about their families and their friends and about all the people that they care about. But it's amazing when you can take that power that each of us have on the inside. I always tell people when I teach this, you have to deny yourself if you want to have a great outcome. So we're selfish as human beings. We want to be able to run the show. And the greatest conversationalists and those that work to these great outcomes are able to navigate the conversation and actually be a chameleon. They call it matching and mirroring, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, where you show up, you sound, you use word choice, body language, tonality, sentence structure, and you match that of the person that you're speaking with. It is remarkable what will happen and how much leverage you'll gain in that conversation because of the trust that's being built.
It's so true. And one thing my husband Al says all the time is you have to decide, do you need to be right, or do you want to get what you want out of a conversation, right? And the need to be right goes back to that selfish, self-driven, I'm a D, I want this done quickly. But if you're sitting there talking to an I, who now we know how to identify in the first question, right? You need to ask, I get them talking and ask questions to feel comfortable with them. And that's how you build that bonding and rapport that's so important in the sales process. I mean, Mary, that was fantastic. Like how you just like, okay, how was your day? And then you can immediately dive deep into that. And obviously it takes practice, right? And maybe even one big thing I think people should do is like take a disc profile on themselves and understand their profile and then how they interact with other people too. But I mean, is there any other things to watch for? Now, you know our business fairly well, but anything else you could watch for if, let's say they're a buyer of a business, like things that they could do to either help the deal or hurt the deal when it comes to disc profiles or using the psychology on their side?
Yeah, sure. So if we're talking about the buyer, so someone's buying a company, knowing that the emotion is resting with the seller, there's so much about being able to identify their personality. If they're a high driver and they just want this deal done, let's say the buyer is more of an I. Mm-hmm. Well, if the buyer is more of an I and the buyer wants to be super social in that conversation, you're probably annoying the seller. And the seller might be questioning, oh my gosh, this person won't shut up. Like, do I want this person buying my business? I can't stand them. Like, what are my people going to think about them? If you think about how your natural personality style conflicts with who you're talking to, if you're a buyer and you want that transaction to be a great outcome, you want to have really good leverage in the conversation, you have to earn trust. And the great way to do that is to not trigger the seller. Like, don't rub them the wrong way. So think about how your natural style might be difficult for them to digest. So let's say the seller is a C, mm-hmm. and they care about numbers and they are so focused on the numbers. And what if the buyer is a D? So the D is a high driver. They don't want to get caught in the details. They're super high urgency. They just want to get this deal done. Like, let's just move on. Yep. But the seller actually can't process information, make decisions, handle negotiation without details, data, and they can't be rushed. They need time. They need to digest. They need to feel like they've crossed all their T's, dotted their I's. They're extremely thorough. Well, the buyer might be rubbed the wrong way. You say, what's wrong with this seller? Why do we have to go over the numbers again? Like, what don't they understand? And that could cause a lot of tension in the situation. But really, the C seller, that's the only way they process information. Like, right. You can't get angry at them. So when you look at these types of mismatches, it can actually cause a lot of tension in that buy-sell conversation. So what I would encourage buyers to do is they want to buy that business. They also want the seller to feel like they made a great decision. And because the emotion is resting on the seller side, not to say it's not emotional for the buyers, but the seller is the one, this is their baby. They're letting this thing go. And they want, of course, a lot of money. Yep. Most of them want more money than it's actually worth, right? And we run into that. And they're just having to come to terms with a lot. So I think it's the buyer that's able to read the seller and be patient with them and really align with that personality style. They're going to build much more rapport. They're going to build trust in the situation. And I think they're going to get to a greater outcome.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, it's funny. We do see a lot of D's and I's in business sales, but we have some C's and S's too. So you really see the gamut. And I think this is one way really that you can give yourself a key advantage as either a buyer or a seller. So Mary, thank you so much for going through all this stuff, giving us that one key question, how was your day? But let's say our listeners want to learn a little bit more. What are some resources that you recommend, or even like some of your own resources that you have available for people to learn more about DISC and profiling in general?
Yeah, so the least expensive way and the easiest way to do it, there are some really amazing DISC profile assessments out on the market, and we sell one of them. It's through Extended DISC, and we have a couple different versions, but there's a really cool output report that compares you against other styles. And I think at a minimum, if people are wanting to learn more, and I think there's a lot of free resources, honestly, Justin, I could probably just Google these things. Yep. There's probably free DISC evals out there. I'm not sure like how scientific or accurate they are, but we love the one that we have. And the output on the report is really powerful because it just tells you more, gives you more insight into who you are, and then how you are perceived by the other styles and how to adjust in order to have great outcomes by interacting with them and adjusting your style. So that's step number one. And then we do teach a class on this once a month. That's something that people can look at. It's more from a sales perspective. So if there are any people out there in business development that are looking to, hey, I want to master this from a sales standpoint, then we do teach a class, and there's information on our website at salesbq.com. But really, I think there's probably a lot of free content people can digest.
I'm sure there is, but this was a great overview, Mary, as well. Thank you so much. Again, Mary can be found on salesbq.com. We will drop that into the show notes too. I also encourage you to follow her on LinkedIn because she gives lots of great free resources and free ideas about sales and sales training and sales management through her LinkedIn. But Mary, thank you so much again for coming on the show. We hope to have you back again.
I would love that. Thank you.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for Listing of the Week.
Hey, we're back, and it is Listing of the Week, and we have Mike Shea from Transworld Business Brokers of Central Florida. And Mike, welcome back. You just got a new listing. It sounds like a good one.
Yeah, really cool one. Cool story. Backstory on this was this young man and his wife. He had contacted me 8 years ago when he was a helicopter mechanic in Afghanistan. I lost contact with him. 8 years later, he calls me up and says, "Hey, I have this business I want you to sell." And he, ETS'd out of the military. He was a helicopter mechanic in the stand, came back and learned how to do e-commerce and crafted this business where he sells jewelry, specifically pearls, all over the world, leveraging social media. Does around 200,000 in sales. Cleanly cash flowing 75,000 net, which is crazy.
Wow.
The pearls are sourced in from farms in the Philippines or Japan. And then it's all drop shipped through the Shopify platform. Met with him yesterday morning. I thought I could get it. This is crazy. I thought I could get a bigger number, but he's got other websites that he's created that are taking off. So his bandwidth is stretching out. I thought I could get him close to 100,000. And he says, "Look, I just need it off my plate, so let's sell it for 50 grand. So for 50 grand, a buyer's going to make 75. Totally relocatable anywhere in the world. He's got about $1,300 worth of inventory sitting in his living room, and he's got 2 computers, and all he spends get there about 10 hours a week in the business.
Wow. Well, that's going to
because he's got these. He's almost got like an Amway model where he's got people out there selling the product for him in their own little Facebook shows. It's a cool model. I haven't seen it before, so it's going to fly quick.
So, yeah, you could even throw that on our Throw Pro program, which is Transworld Hot Relocatable Opportunities. So that's a good one for that.
Yeah, it's an awesome business.
So if somebody wants to know more and get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Sure. My email is mike@tworld.com, or they can reach me on my cell phone, 321-287-0349. I'm on Skype. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can DM me there. You can even hit me up on WhatsApp.
Yeah, and you're going to get a lot of action on that, so I would highly recommend everybody jump right in. So thanks for coming on this week. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.